Well, hello and welcome again to the Ministry Show. We're so happy that you've joined us to continue our conversation on time management, the great equalizer. Oh my goodness. I hope you got a lot out of the last show, especially the interview with Pastor Brady Boyd. Now, Pam, he's one of your favorite pastors.
He is.
Why?
Well, he's the very first pastor that I heard balance and time management and leaving at a specific time. And he set for our staff clear boundaries that was very refreshing and allowed us the freedom to come in at a certain time, leave at a certain time, and leave it at work and not carry it throughout the rest of our evening and night. So I really appreciate that.
Gave you freedom to be a mom and a wife and a neighbor and a friend and all of those things that are important to you and I in our lives and bring so much joy. If we don't utilize our time wisely, we margin out those things that bring the most refreshment instead of those things that drain us the most. But effective time management helps you get what you want. We kind of alluded to that last week, but I just want to be bold and say it. If you manage your time effectively, whatever you want to become or whatever you want to do, you're going to be able to make that happen. Ineffective utilization of time, it'll never happen. And so I can't tell you the number of people that have coached me throughout my life, starting from a very young, naive, I'm being gracious to myself, kind of really a stupid pastor, if I can just be blunt about it, and helping me and coaching me and teaching me these concepts that both Pam and I are bringing to you that hopefully will be instilled in your life and you can enjoy the ministry that God's called you to. You can enjoy being a husband, a father if you have children. If you're not married and you're single, that you enjoy the great amount of satisfaction that comes from just being around your friends and serving with love and grace in our communities. That's the whole point of effective time management. It's not so that you can take a break and do whatever you want. It's so that you can enjoy life at a higher level. I'll say it that way, whatever it might mean to you. So one of the things that had the most impact on me in my utilization of time was I read a book by Peter Drucker called The Effective Executive. Now, Peter Drucker is often referred to as the guru of modern management in business. And I've read a bunch of business books and almost all of them trail back to this one guy, Peter Drucker. So if you don't know anything about Peter Drucker, just go ahead and Google him. But he wrote this book called Effective Executive. In that book, he said this. I thought it was an audacious statement at the time. To be effective as an executive, you need to do a time study 2 times per year. Now, let me explain what this time study is, Pam. It's taking a day and dividing it into 10-minute segments. So 6 times an hour, you're recording what you're doing. And I was challenged to do that, not only by the book, but by the person that gave me the book. I did it. I was embarrassed at how much time I was wasting. I thought I was super productive, and by some standards, I probably was, but I found huge amount of times that I'm just wasting away that wasn't bringing a return to the focus of my life. In fact, I've done these time studies over the years. I've never done a time study and kept my life the same following it. I've tweaked and changed so many things, and through that was able to utilize time in a more productive manner that helped me become who I wanted to be and help me do the things that I wanted to do. I would recommend that you get the Effective Executive or at least do this time study. And you can just put in time study on Google and you'll have a lot of different options there. But we cannot manage our time very well if we don't know where our time is going. And it would be very similar to our finances. I cannot manage my finances very well unless I first know where is my money going. Does that sort of make sense, Pam? Or
absolutely.
What would you add to that?
Yeah, you had me do that exercise, and it was very eye-opening for me as well. I definitely encourage everyone to do that. But we know, Chris, how much time we have. It's finite. We know we have 24 hours a day. But with tasks, it isn't. So every new task that we take on, it can bring a certain amount of pressure to us, especially if that affects others. So I really have to ask myself, will this task drain me? Is it going to be emotionally taxing? In order for me to manage my time better, I need to become more self-aware. And that's what that 10-minute increment did for me that you had me do. I became much more self-aware and things that actually made me a little bit more emotional because maybe I was taxing my time too much. So I was like, that's not healthy for me.
Well, I've often said, Pam, that task management is easier than time management because the task gives a certain amount of satisfaction.
Right.
I ticked it off the list.
Yeah.
I got this thing done. People know that I got this thing done. I heard a comedian joke one time about, I think the setup is he's married and his wife is out in the driveway, retarring the driveway, and comes out and say, honey, don't worry about the ashtray. I emptied the ashtray. So I don't know if that only speaks to men, but men like to get things done, whether it's emptying the ashtray or tarring the driveway. But the point is this. We like to get things done because it brings a certain amount of satisfaction. The key to productivity is not getting things done. It's spending our time getting the right things done, or the most important things done. And usually for pastors and church leaders, the most important thing, we have to add a word, the most important thing for my church. And because I've got a lot of important things to do that I want to get done, but they only advance Chris Mavity. They don't advance my church and the mission of the church. So I have to be focused on what is going to help the church the best. Of course, we have jobs, ministries, and so on that all these tasks need to get done. And you mentioned one thing. Will this task drain me? Is it emotionally taxing? It's so important. And so if we want to utilize our time very well and are involved in emotionally draining tasks that need to get done, is there somebody else that you can delegate that to that it's not emotionally draining?
That's a good point.
For them. Yeah. And so, as many of you on the ministry show know, and I know, Pam, you know this, I've been involved in small group ministry basically my entire ministry career. And I've done small groups poorly. I've done them pretty average, and I've done them very well. But one of the things that always drained me in small group ministry, it was so taxing, was the task of monitoring what's going on in the groups. Yeah. Getting the reports, getting the attendance, keeping track of everything. So the important part of it is so that I would be able to know with relative certainty what was going on in the groups. I needed to know that as a small group pastor. Well, it basically made me want to quit becoming a small group pastor. And what happened was, instead of continuing to do the work, I thought, who's somebody that would take this job, do this work, and be elated about it? You know what her name was? Happened to be a gal. Her name is Rhonda Petrini. And Rhonda geeks out and loves making sure there's no gaps and no overlaps with people and all. And what was super draining emotionally to me and just gave me a headache. And so guess what? I put it off and I put it off and I put it off, and it was a floundering part of my ministry. But when Rhonda came into the picture, she absolutely loved it. She's like, you're going to pay me to do data management. She's like, I can't believe you're going to pay me to do this. She loved it so much. So to your point of maybe a good place for you and I to start is to make an assessment of what are the tasks that I'm doing that actually are draining my energy inappropriately. Right. And then see if we can find, it doesn't have to be a paid person, could be a volunteer, could be paid staff or whatever, because your productivity will go through the roof, as mine did. And so that is a very good point. And I think on time management would be a great place to start. Instead of what time am I wasting, what am I doing that's wasting my energy? Mm-hmm. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, that's it right there. It's something new to me too, Chris, through our shows that actually I thought about that. I thought, I need to eliminate things that drain me. I don't need to do this. I can delegate it or let it die. Yeah. One or the other. It may not be that important. So I've heard you talk, Chris, about time being a neutral thing, and it's either your friend or it's your enemy.
Yeah, time is not a neutral thing.
I mean, not a neutral. I'm sorry. I said
it's never neutral.
No, it's never neutral.
It's either to your benefit or to your detriment, or I think you said friend or enemy or whatever, or it can be your friend.
Right.
So, that is so true. We want time working in our favor. Another thing that helped me, not only the time study, when it comes to calendaring, one of the things that helped me was instead of looking at a calendar with the month in blocks, the weeks go across the page in blocks, is I began to look at a calendar as a face of a clock. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Mm-hmm. So we've got 12 hours in a day. We have 12 months in the year. So from 12 to 1 was January, 1 to 2, February, so on and so forth. I think the fellow that taught me this was Bob Beal, if I remember correctly. And man, it just absolutely changed the way that I look at calendaring, because I could look at the calendar and go, oh, well, I'm going to need a vacation in March. So I looked at it like a face of a clock, and things just snapped instead of going, well, here's 1 month, here's another month, here's another month. It was just easier, especially to put the big things on that sort of face of the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew at 3:15 that I had this big deal, or I knew at 6:45 that I had a conference I was going to, or whatever it might be. And of course, I know many of us pastors from 11:50 to 12 o'clock, we take that off anyway, that week after Christmas or whatever.
Yes.
It really helped me, and it just kind of was like, oh, how do I dice up the pie here? It was just very helpful to see time, especially calendaring, in something that was way more familiar than just the boxes or the blocks. So time is ticking away.
Yeah.
Even the time that you've been listening to this show, you can't get that time back. It's gone. So Pam and I do want to make sure that your time is well invested here at the ministry show. So continuing to try to give you not only hot tips, but tools that will help you become better and not only become what you want, but get what you want as well.
That's right. I love that example that you gave about the clock, about the months. Do you do this every January? Do you sit down and say, I'm going to plan out my year, putting these big events in like you talked about, the more important things? How do you do that? Or do you suggest that pastors and leaders just jump in and do that now?
Yeah, I think you could do it at any time. And when I first heard about it and learned about it, I did it right away. I was like, okay, here's, the clocks and the months and everything. But I do recall, and I do this every single year, I reflect on the year. You might not know this, but every Friday, I take 2 hours and reflect on the week.
Oh, that's good.
I shared it with a couple of people on staff at our company, Church Community Builder, and I don't know if they're starting to do it or not, but when I first started to do it, it was extremely difficult to do, and now I don't miss it, maybe once a quarter or something. But when we live our life or do our work and we don't reflect upon it, we can't learn from it. Because especially the pace of life today is so fast. It's like it's here, it's gone. It's here, it's gone. I do this, it's gone. I did this interview, it's done. We do the ministry show, it's over. Well, I have to purposefully set aside time, and I do it on Friday afternoons, 3 to 5, religiously. And I'll review what we did ministry show-wise. Now, it might take me 10 or 15 minutes, but I want these shows to get better. I don't want them to stay the same.
Right.
For you and I to get better and be a better resource for those that listen in, but also different meetings that I have. Oh, what would I have done differently? Well, what did I learn? I don't know if anybody else out there is forgetful, but I've caught a lot of things. I don't catch everything, but I catch many things that it's like, oh, I forgot to do this or whatever, that I can then quickly do, because none of us wants to be known as somebody who's unreliable. And if you don't complete things that you promise, you will be known as an unreliable person. Well, I don't want that in my life. So I set that time aside every week. Then I set time aside every month. And then I set time aside every year. And for every year, I used to do it the week of Thanksgiving. Now I've moved that to the week after Christmas. I take some time, usually a full day, and review the entire year and it's fairly easy to do because I've already reviewed the months and I've already reviewed the weeks. Now, I have had some people that have taught me or encouraged me to review every day. I don't really do that. That doesn't work for me, but I do review the week, the month, and then the year. And so that's when I do it.
I'm going to start doing this, Chris.
Yeah.
That's good.
And it's surprising how much you can learn from yourself if you'll take the time to reflect.
Yeah.
To re-engage with, and not just good enough is good enough, but what did I do wrong at that meeting? Oh, you know what? I interrupted so-and-so. I remember they were talking and they had a flow going and I had a thought pop into my head and I'm so ADD. I've done that with you before.
I do it.
And it's like, oh, well, I might need to apologize to them. So I call it, like on the spot, call them. Hey, I'm, in that meeting. And they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, but at least my conscience is clear. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point being that, and I think you said this earlier, time is not a neutral thing in your life.
Right.
It's either going to be for you or against you. And if we as pastors and church leaders don't take the time to reflect on what just happened, it's virtually, I'll say it that way, impossible to learn from it. Or if we reflect on it, we will accelerate our ability to learn from our own life experience to the nth degree. It is a great time management tool that served me well over the years.
You coach a lot of pastors and leaders. Is this something that you coach them with? And how does that change their life or their ministry?
In the coaching that I do, I don't do any template coaching. So we co-create the agenda. Mm-hmm. So for some, definitely is a topicality that comes up, and we take a deep dive into it, deeper than we can go on the show. But these are the main points, of course. And in every case, they've had the same experiences that I've had. I cannot believe how much time that I've been wasting. But the last time I did the time study, I said the exact same thing. I've gotten better at utilizing time, but it's still like, oh, well, I'm doing this thing over here, and it has nothing to do with the focus or direction of my life. Yeah. So pruning is a part of productivity. And just like in husbandry, if we try to make every plant grow, then no plants are going to come to bring a huge amount of fruit. We have to prune the things that are emotionally draining or that are not congruent with the focus and direction and intent of our life.
It's so good.
See, when you ask questions, you get really long answers.
No,
so
I love it. I learn from you all the time. It's great.
I was going to ask you a quick question too.
Okay.
So let's just say right now that I've already talked to your boss and cleared the next 2 weeks from your calendar and put a pile of money on your desk, two $10,000 stacks. So 20 grand in 2 weeks. What are we going to find you doing?
Oh, this is a good question. I know that this sounds kind of crazy, but I've wanted to do this now for the past year, where I just get in a place of prayer and hear from the Holy Spirit and then go on like scavenger hunts to go bless people. I know this sounds crazy, but I really want to do that. I want to hear him say, go help that person, or go to this ministry, and just go and dump money off.
Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. I've really been wanting to do that. And not even so much money, but do they need prayer for healing? Do they need encouragement? Whatever it is, I want to do that. So can you get me 2 weeks off and half the money?
I'll work on that. Here's the point of why I asked the question. People with discretionary time and money don't do things they don't want to do. And if you want to get to that point where you have discretionary time and discretionary money, so you can do the things that you want, like what you just mentioned, you want the Holy Spirit to guide you to bless others, then you must begin today to utilize the time in the most effective way possible. Here's the action items for this session. Identify, what do you really want? Not what do you think your parents want you to want or what your professor wants you to want. What do you really want? What motivates you? What's driving you? Second thing, how much of it do you have? Scale of 1 to 10. Well, I got 10%. I got 20%. I got whatever that might be. And then what will you adjust to gain more? That will be the genesis of you or me beginning to utilize our time in an effective manner that will bring us eventually exactly what we want and need. So anyway, time, I can't believe we did it in 2 sessions, but yeah, I'm proud of you, Pam. Good job.
Good job, Chris. So next week, I'm super excited about who we're going to have on the show. Chris Fowler is the CEO of Church Community Builder and the founder, one of my most favorite people in the world, and I'm just so excited that we get to have an interview with him.
Yeah, and I'm excited too because he is one person that I've learned some of the things we've talked about even in this show. So
he's a
I've
master.
learned them from him. So.
Yeah, master of time management. So hey, Chris, last couple shows I know we have missed promoting the Build Gathering that I am so excited about coming up here in
November.
Yeah, I'm very excited. So if you have not signed up for that, you can go to
buildgathering.com. And man, we got
sign up.
Slew of great communicators and really facilitators to help us have these candid conversations around ministry. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, it is. I know I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I wish there would have been something like this when I first started ministry.
Yeah, very helpful. So, hey, the ministry show is possible because of our sponsors. You can see them on the website there. If you have a need for any of their products or services, please give them a shot. They can help you advance your own ministry as well. So, until next week, I hope you have a great week. God bless.